Folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Joining us now is columnist for the New Jersey Star-Ledger, Paul Mulshine. Hi, Paul.
Hey. How you doing, Steve?
I know you're on deadline. I know it's very busy, very hectic, obviously, with this breaking news on the revelation of the emails that came out today. Your newspaper with an editorial. I know you don't on the editorial board. You don't speak for them, but basically saying if Christie knew he's obviously lying and unfit for office, let alone a 2016 presidential run. Basically, strong terms from your paper. Where are we heading into tomorrow's hearings in Trenton, in New Jersey's State Assembly, I believe, where they're looking to have the man of the hour, not Christie, but his Port Authority appointee who's involved in these emails who resigned. They're looking to have him testify.
Yeah, I was just talking to a guy from Rick Merkt, who was a guy who ran against Christie for governor back in 2009 in the primary, and also was on a ticket with him in Morris County, lives in the same Mendham Township. And he pointed out the amazing parallels to Watergate. The margin of victory is almost exactly the same, 22 points. The guy was way ahead in the polls. He did something that there was no political advantage in doing, and he got caught. And the funny thing is now, back then it was the tapes. Now we've got these knuckleheads put this on email. I don't know, don't they have cell phones? I mean, they put this stuff all down in email. And then now the Democrats, of course, are saying, what else did Christie do in terms of persecuting critics and so forth? And they want to start a big investigation into that. And I think it totally finishes them off nationally because it's just so embarrassing. And, they might even call for impeachment. I mean, they could say this is such an incredible – I don't think they'd get it. Well, they do have the votes to get it if they wanted it. I don't think they'd go that far.
Well, what does Christie have to do now? I mean, first of all, let me ask you about this redacted name on this email. There's one email participant who actually said that, I feel badly about the kids, I guess. And then David Wildstein, the aforementioned Port Authority appointee by Christie who resigned, who will be hopefully testifying tomorrow, said that they're the children of Barbara Buono voters, and that's the person who ran against Christie for governor. Then there was a response from this unnamed person saying kind of like, yeah, I guess I really don't feel so bad. Who do we know? Do you have any idea why that person's name is redacted?
No, at the hearing tomorrow we'll probably be asking that. But there are so many people on that list whose careers are now doomed. David Sampson, who used to be the Attorney General, Mike Druniak, the press secretary. He's a bright guy. He's a former Star-Ledger reporter. I thought he would have had the common sense not to put his nose into this sort of thing. Everybody on there is just, I guess, it has to pretty much go out the door. I don't see how you save any of these people. And then tomorrow, Wildstein's now the interesting thing tomorrow is Wildstein is going to come in under oath.
Right, fifth. You think he'll take the fifth?
Yeah, because Ray Lesniak, the state senator from Elizabeth, is calling for a federal grand jury to be impaneled. So I would suspect Wildstein is going to use that and just say, well, if you're going to be calling for a federal grand jury, I'm taking the fifth. And I suspect you're going to see when they call Baroni in, he'll probably take the fifth. All these people are probably going to be taking the fifth. Now, I spent the day trying to determine whether any crime was committed, and I don't think so. I asked Lesniak specifically, he wanted a federal grand jury. I said, what federal crime was committed? And he said, well, there's got to be one. Well, there's really not. Federal crimes are actually fairly constricted. They're like wire fraud, mail fraud. You need to show political retribution by itself. The funny thing is, there used to be, when Christie was U.S. Attorney, going after politicians, there was what was called honest services. And politicians were getting indicted just for simply the crime of depriving people of their honest services. And by the way, they could actually, when they were stretching this out, they could go after you or me. They could say, oh, you had a crummy radio show Tuesday. You deprived your listeners of their
right, you could
services.
Take it to the absurd, right.
Yeah,
because I would never have a crummy radio show.
Right. But The Supreme Court in 2009, Christie got a lot of convictions under that broad statute of people who really hadn't done much wrong.
Well, let me ask you, Paul,
But
because
the Supreme Court threw it out.
right, it's no longer. Okay, so you're talking to people who believe there are parallels to Watergate, but if no crime was committed here, then the cover-up isn't covering up a crime, so that parallel goes out the window, right?
You would think so. Now, on the other hand, conspiracy on the federal level remains such an open-ended. It's weird, but
so there could be a crime here. You're saying?
If this is the problem, if the U.S. Attorney Paul Fishman decided to be as creative as Christie used to be,
right?
Back when Christie was U.S. Attorney, he could go after some of these people. Now, I don't think normal political retribution is a crime because half the politicians in the country.
But if you're putting the public at risk, as they did, obviously, if they did this with the kids and talked about the kids in advance in school buses and emergency vehicles, that's putting the public at risk. That's not just retribution, against one person. Yeah, it's bad PR. But if you think of putting the public at risk, people do that all the time with stupid regulations and so forth. And I don't think you could argue. There's all sorts of things you could argue. All right, well, let me ask you, because we're going to run out of time. We're talking to Paul Mulshine, the columnist for the New Jersey Star Ledger, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Christie, I mean, he's poo-pooed this. He's denied knowing. He said it's a big deal because I'm a national figure. Yeah, I put the cones there myself. It's not important. What does he do now to try to save himself? He canceled a public event. Where does he go next, and what does he say next, in your view? Well, I was at the press conference where he said that thing about putting the cones out. He didn't really, that was a non-denial denial. He poo-pooed it by saying, oh, yeah, I put the cones out myself. Right, he never said, I know nothing. Right. He didn't, I don't think he's on the record saying I didn't know anything about this. He's constantly given those sarcastic responses that he gets. And I was at that press conference, and I thought, I believed him. I said, "Yeah, well, it's crazy." Why would he was asked, "Did you investigate the traffic study? Do you know that it happened?" He said, "I'm not an investigator. I'm not a prosecutor anymore." So my point is, what do you think he does next? Well, he tried to BS his way out of it, and I think he hunkers down. He's got to wait to see what comes out. I mean, the question's going to be, does it get back to him? I mean, I think he fires a whole bunch of people, and the question is it going to get back to him? Did he order this? If he ordered this, he might be he's certainly done nationally. He could be impeached, as you said. Yeah, they could go that far. And what about what about the cover-up? What if he didn't order it, but knew about it while he was standing there saying, yeah, I know he didn't deny it flatly, but yeah, I moved the cones. What if he knew about it and let it get this far without saying anything, without firing the people that he knew were involved? Yeah, I think that I don't know how he survives that. I mean, it just seems like, it seems like it's all over for him at that point. It's the end of his political career. Yeah, well, we'll see. So how long before you think we hear from him? Probably next week sometime. By the way, really? He had a really rotten political career before this. The guy I was talking to, pointed out in Morris County in the 90s, he lost 3 out of 4 races, alienated everybody he talked to, and generally left everybody with a sour impression. So he wasn't known as a brilliant politician going in, and he was known for a lot of this retribution and so forth. So it's character coming out, I suspect, and that's part of his character. On the one hand, he can be a very genial guy. On the other hand, he can be very vindictive, and I think that's character is fate. All right. Listen, Paul, appreciate you taking the time. I know, like I said, I know you got your own job to do, and thank you very much. We'll speak to you soon. Thanks for having me. Bye now. My pleasure. Paul Mulshine, ladies and gentlemen, columnist for the New Jersey Star Ledger. Now, let's make it clear, he's no fan of Christie to begin with, for different reasons than I'm no fan of Christie. I was a fan of Christie. But this is very interesting. He could be impeached, parallels to Watergate, and he could be done. We shall see where this all leads. When we come back, I'm sure Bill Kristol, founder and editor of the Weekly Standard, will have an opinion on this, and also on Defense Secretary Gates' memoir and what he had to say. All ahead on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.